Well, hi, welcome back to Homeschool House Calls. This is episode 2, where we are going to visit Allie at the park. We're going to go hang out a little bit, and we're going to talk about her question. She had one of the most awesome questions that I think every homeschooler should ask. It is about what makes a good resource, how do you know where to put your money, and how to find resources that stand the test of time. So we're going to talk about that. We'll look at a few that I pulled out that I thought Allie would enjoy. And let us know in the video and down in the comments today, what do you consider a great resource and how do you judge it? Okay, this is Devin with Homeschool House Calls, and we are going to talk with Allie today. She had a really awesome question when we first met virtually earlier this year. We're trying not to get too close, you know, with everything going on. But you asked me how to know what is a good quality resources, like, buying,
where do I spend my money?
Where do you spend your money? And that's a great question.
Or use an outside resource, even just in books. Which ones should I just do the library? And which ones will I continue to use and use and use?
Yeah, see, that's a question that I don't hear that a lot. It's really easy for homeschool moms when you first start to buy everything you see, because you want to buy all the things, and then suddenly you have like shelves and shelves and shelves of stuff you don't use. So we're going to talk about resources for the kids, but I wanted to start with resources for the moms, and I'm going to get very weird because I'm holding a camera and trying not to do things where you're not like all up in your face. But anyway, so I have a couple of things for Allie to show her some resources. One thing that I relied on a lot when my kids were little, I don't do as much now because we have lots of computers, but when we started and I was new to it, scheduling was a nightmare. And I had 4 littles, and now I have 5 in all, but I had 4 littles altogether. So one thing that I read and reread every year was Managers of Their Homes, and it is a scheduling program. If you're familiar with the Duggars, this is the program they use when you see their big wall full of stuff, way back in the day when everybody watched that. So this is one of my gifts to Allie because I think she will enjoy it. But I would reread that every year. And what it is it basically teaches you how to schedule. And I would reread it every year. And I don't use it as much now because it's kind of ingrained. But you start out by listing everything you have to do, even you. Mm-hmm. I'm like, if it was nursing the baby, you were listing everything. And then it shows you how to break it down so you have a schedule. Does it always work for everybody? No, probably not, but it still teaches you the basics of scheduling, so I highly recommend this one for any mama starting. Now, if you've known me for a long time with our Facebook group, Professional Home Educator, I am very big on telling moms to budget, put themselves in their budget, and put yourselves in your schedule. That is easy to not do. And what I mean about that is you're putting time into honing your craft and being a professional at your job, because when you decide to teach your children, you're picking up another job that I don't think always that homeschool mamas think about. So this is like helps hone your craft.
Okay.
Scheduling, that's yours too. I got that for you.
Yay.
Shh, I don't always do that, but Allie's mine. Another thing I've got is mother culture. This is almost like a devotional for homeschool moms, but not biblical. There may be some biblical stuff in here, but it's like different things to think about. Mother culture is where it's the same idea of putting yourself into your budget and your schedule, building yourself up. You want your children to see that you're teaching yourself and that you're learning. So this is yours too. So that's one thing I do challenge you. I know y'all do Charlotte Mason. You can get, let's see, where are they? There are lots of books by Charlotte Mason or Charlotte Mason people. This is not for you. This is mine. But you can find these used. You can find them at your library, and you can just find ways to build your library so that you're honing your craft. Also remember there are lots of free online conferences. There's lots of free online workshops. So you're looking at spending at least part of your time on you, and part of your time of your budget on you too, because that's one thing mamas forget. So you can that's mine, but I'll take it back with me. But then there's teaching stuff, things like this is Montessori. That's very similar to Charlotte Mason, but you can have stuff like this on your shelf. I look for used. This is a good one. I actually think I'm giving this one to you because Lacey has outgrown this one. See, this is my shelf. I'm going to give that to Allie. So we finished that one, but that one may give you stuff for the little ones to do, and it's something that will last you for several years, and then you can pass on to another mama.
Because my kiddos are 7, 5, and 2.
7, 5, and 2. So she's got a couple of years where my youngest is 5, and she's kind of moving. Some of this not, but she's kind of moving past that. I mean, other things are like, you can find resources like this. Then you move into the kids and look for long-term things that you can look, because you have littles. You're looking long-term when you buy resources. Like we pulled this one out. I pulled this one off the shelf. This one is just letters, and it's good quality. It's there you can get cheaper ones if your budget doesn't foam. Foam. You can buy foam letters like this and use those with magnets. I like these woods. They're very, very tactile.
I invested in wood because
they last.
My boys and the 2-year-old choose things, so foam is out in our house.
Yeah. See, these are wood. They're, not overly expensive. I got this one off Amazon. I think it was probably around $40.
I think so.
But they have the consonants are red and the vowels are blue. So this is just something you can have sitting out. So when you do school, they see it. You want to use a whole bunch of senses. Anything that you can use lots of senses so that you're covering all the bases. So that's one, good quality, and it will last several kids. Let's see, I'm going to move these books to the side. Another thing I keep on my shelf is math resources. This one's by Saxon, but it's got like counting tiles, and some of this stuff comes from another company. But it's a good, not cheap, but it will last you. There's some font. This is plastic, but you can get these, and you have them, for several years. It has like a scale so that they can weigh and see which one weighs more. The counting bears are not in here because that is what Lacey likes to use with counting with her math. There's dominoes, so there's like just a big array of math resources that's all contained together. You can use it through the middle school years and for several years. So that's something I would buy. And a lot of times they'll have good resale value. Legos are always a good buy because they resell well. Let me tell you, when my oldest decided he was no longer doing Legos at about 14, I cried. But they lasted to 14, and I've heard of other kids going way beyond that. So that's a good resource. With math, this is one that I like that we have. These are math card games. I have it's about maybe $80. It is not a by-year curriculum. It's just all the games. So games are a good thing to put in there that's good. Maybe not resale all the time, but you can use them for a long period of time. This goes up until pre-algebra, and there's games all the way through it that you can use from now until they hit pre-algebra. So that's a good resource that can be used long term. No matter what math curriculum you're using, there's games to be put on there. And there are good groups on Facebook, like Game Schooling by My Little Poppies. That's one I like, that you can go in there and ask whatever subject you've got, and you'll have people tell you all sorts of games. But this one I think is good because it can, it doesn't take up much room. Other things that Allie may not want to use, but you all may use. This is one that I used for Cole. 2 years of language arts, and it's just reading. I know y'all like to read things in a book, and you may like something like that. And this is one that I will use for Lacey later, just part of her morning basket that we got. Even though she'll probably get language arts in other places, this is one that we'll use just for morning basket. And that's 2 years. So, it's something that you could reuse and just reread it because it's got stuff like, it talks about noun, talks about all sorts of different stuff, and you can it's just one little section a day. I liked it for Cole. You don't have to have another language arts, but I will probably have another, like for phonics. Especially, I like the Good and Beautiful for language arts, and
You even list the copy work.
yes, it has copy work,
Recommended
and
copy work.
that is not hard to find anymore. I have not seen it. I have to go looking. This is what I used for Cole when he was 6, 13 years ago. And I actually, when I had my happy surprise baby, I went looking for it because I had such fond memories. That's really funny. I had such fond memories, but it doesn't always work for multiple children. It's just something we'll put in the language arts basket. Other things that you can look like this: gardening activities, kindergarten through 6th grade. There's just lots of stuff that's great for science up until, I'm very, very much Charlotte Mason when they're little, and this just works perfectly for multiple grades, so that's always an idea. I like this one. This we have on the shelf for language arts to add in. Show me a story. I just grabbed stuff off my shelf this morning. Poetry tea time. So when you look at curriculum, you're looking long term. You can always resell it if you don't like it, but you think of curriculum long-term, things that you can use for multiple children. When mine were little, I used Matthew C, and I would cut the bind on the workbooks. I would cut the bind off and then put them in page protectors, and that's going to be on our Homeschool Hacks playlist later this month. I'm going to show you how to cut the binder off, and then we would put them in page protectors and use dry erase crayons, and the kids would do their math, and then I saved it the next year for the next kid. That's what I did all the way to pre-algebra, and at pre-algebra we switched to an online program because I had the surprise baby. So other things like Minecraft Lab for kids. These are stuff that you can use. Minecraft has stood the test of time. It can be very educational. I know some people don't like online stuff, but as long as you pay attention to what's going on and be willing to learn, you can use these things as resources. All my children have played Minecraft, and there's a lot of learning. Even my 14-year-old was playing one on her tablet the other day where she was learning all about bees and how they worked, and she would walk through somebody set it up. They took all this time to build about bees, and so she was going all the way through there learning about bees. She actually started a project where she was trying to put the whole Bible in the Minecraft story, but I think the typing of the whole Bible kind of overwhelmed her and she stopped. But it was not a bad project. She just wasn't quite, just didn't really, typing it, that's going to take a long time. But that was her project, and I thought it was pretty cool. So those are some of the resources I use and that I suggest for Allie. And what else? Now, judging, you did ask about judging whether to buy things. This is how I judge literature. If it's more vintage and it's something I have a connection with from my childhood, I always buy it. But we usually, if it's something I don't know, we will get it from the library, and if they continue and they really love it, then I will start buying stuff. One thing we have on our shelf that, some mamas may judge me, but Diary of a Wimpy Kid. It is not my personal favorite, and I was kind of a little bit against it in the beginning, but when I was teaching and Cole learned to read, he took a little bit longer to do it. This was the first book he actually happily grabbed and would read and then reread and then read to his siblings. So although it's not my favorite choice, it is one we have almost everything on the shelf because every child I've had has read that. Is it absolutely wonderful literature? I don't know. But did they happily read and build their vocabulary? Yes. Another one we have is, let's see, Lemony Snicket. What is it? Series of Unfortunate Events. Now, I know it's kind of dark. Some mamas don't like it. But the thing I love about it is they will use a huge word that's outside of this child's, the target age vocabulary, and then they define what that word means. So you have to look at, everybody has their own point and what they like, but when you look at it, watch how your children react, and if it's something that more than, like Diary of a Wimpy Kid, every child has read that. It always seems to be their first fiction, and it's horrible humor, But at the same, I mean, and even my oldest girl will say that he treats his parents horribly, but at least they know, and we can have a discussion, that this is not the way you talk to your parents or your friends. And they laugh and watch it, and they start reading happily. So judge it on that, but at the same time, you still go with your gut. There's some things, we've read Harry Potter, but we are very picky about when they read it, because that is a darker series. But my cousins who love it and grew up with it, that was their suggestion, to only hand the kids one a year, so that they grow.
It matures.
So that it matures as they go, and you have to be careful with that. And for my gun-ho Harry Potter cousins to say, only let them read one a year. And it's okay to say that. They can love that series, and even though the whole series is there, you can say, no, you get one a year on your birthday. So I tend to get a lot of vintage. We do have some that probably are not favorites. But I also pre-read. That's one thing I always do. Harry Potter, I pre-read it before I ever let them read it, so that I knew what was coming. There have been some that I pre-read. My son begged for when he was really my biggest reader. Gabriella is my second biggest reader, but he would ask for stuff, and I was like, okay, I need to pre-read that first. And by the time I finished, he no longer wanted to read it, so, which was great because I didn't like it. So, you can, if you pre-read it and you feel like your gut says no, then follow your gut and say, okay, I don't feel good about this one. You're going to have to wait a little while. You can find diplomatic ways to make sure they're not completely mad at you. But I've always told my kids that Mama is here because I have experience, and I have the say so. Like, if they wanted to go back to school or public school, my kids have never been in school, but if they wanted to go to public school, I always tell them, Mama has experience, you don't. Why do you want this? So that's what I do. What else?
Don't have a question at the moment, but I might in a second. But I'm in a dyslexia awareness mode of my life.
Yeah.
Because I'm
and
learning.
You've done fabulous. I mean,
Thank you.
Really, I feel like Allie has been one of the best. When she started homeschooling, you were not going to continue. It was just a COVID thing.
Yes.
And then after about a month, you said, hey, I'm here to stay. And I was like,
long.
whoa, okay, great. And she's really done fabulous. I have been very pleased with how much you've done without my help.
I have been a research kind of addict.
That may be some of the ADD.
I did,
We are both ADD, and we're very similar.
So when you have ADD, you hate doing dishes, everything that takes a long time that you really don't. So
all that rote.
Insert interest, which is
Yes.
audiobooks for me.
Yes.
So instead of audiobooks, I've been listening to the professional home educators videos. I'd play it on my iPad next to me.
Yeah, we're gonna put the old stuff on podcast form on the YouTube channel this year.
That'd be fantastic.
So
So
that'll
I've
be
been
easier to
addicted
find.
to that, and I listen to it constantly. The Teachable boot camps. There was
she likes my stuff, people.
There was a homeschooling. You shared it, and it is the best $22 I spent, because it was
the
homeschooling one child. It was all for special needs.
That is awesome, an awesome one. We've had several. And if I find a conference that, even if it's not mine, I'm not like pro me where you need all my stuff. If I find something good, I want to pass it on so mamas can find it, because that's what Professional Home Educator has always been about, is having available resources. When I was looking for stuff for people, I couldn't find it. So
When I first started, I knew we were dealing with ADHD.
yeah.
With my son, and then the more research I did on the comorbidity of dyslexia, dysgraphia, and learning what those were through those videos.
It gives you some hope too.
The 3Ds video that you have.
Yeah, with Corey was great.
That was, yes.
I'm gonna move. I'm moving my hand, people, because my hand starts going to sleep.
With Corey White, that one was an eye-opener, and realizing, okay, there might be more. So continuing to do research, and I am it's often hereditary, so I've learned a lot of my coping mechanisms. I've learned that there's a reason, and learned that
that there has to be, and things that you have to do. And you
I didn't realize other people didn't have to think like I do.
And you have to do it a certain way, and it has to be a certain, it has to be a certain system. I have a problem if I, like getting out of the car when my kids were little, if I didn't do things a certain way, the keys got locked in the car. I'm like, you don't mess with mama's systems.
Yes, I have systems, and luckily my husband, when he's here, he knows my systems, so he can plug into them well. But if grandma or grandpa plugs in, I'm forgetting something.
There's mass chaos. And that's
but
one
I'm
thing.
Starting that to say, there's a Usborne has there is dyslexia. I think there's a font for dyslexia.
That
awesome. Helps them, and spacing. Usborne has the Bear Grylls. My son is all about outdoors, fishing, camping. We're a part of Scouts, and so the Bear Grylls stuff, he has a series, and it's in the dyslexic font.
That is amazing.
With bigger spacing. And the last page, he actually talks about he did it intentionally for dyslexia.
That is amazing.
Resources to learn about it.
And what's neat is with ADD, one thing I found that, I was diagnosed in college. People are very, very good about throwing medication at you and not teaching you how to study. But the girl that diagnosed me was very good, and she taught me to put a bookmark, which is a plain piece of paper, under each line. And that helps you focus on just that line. That was one of the best things I did, and I do suggest that when you think there's even if you know your child has a disability but you don't have a diagnosis, get the diagnosis, because homeschool is all about making accommodations. But when they go to college or trade school, mama's not there being in charge of that accommodation. And it is very, very helpful, because when I was in college, I was able to tape the lecture so that I could go home and re-listen and make sure my notes were correct, because my notes were very rarely correct. And then I also had the ability to take the exams in a longer space of time with accommodation, so that there were not distractions. That was phenomenal. So even though you don't always need them for your homeschooling, and sometimes you can get around not having them, once they get into trade school, going after high school, you'll need it. And even with taking the ACT, they will have accommodations. So I think having a diagnosis is not a bad thing. There are some people who will tell me
ultimately, we're careful in how we told our son about it, but it is his, and he has to learn and make his own adjustments. And if mom just adjusts everything around him, and eventually you want them to leave the house. So
and if you're doing all the adjustment and they're not learning how to adjust, then they can't function. And
you will have you'll have depression on your hands. My youngest brother, he got to college, and he's been battling depression because he didn't have the diagnosis. And there was nobody helping him anymore.
There was no one to help him.
So he's in the process of getting diagnosed.
And that's a good thing.
Colleges often will not meet you there until you have a diagnosis.
Yeah, it is very important. And it is not, most colleges will have a psychology department, psychiatry department, that you can actually, as a student, get testing much cheaper than, I think I only paid like $90. That was about 20 years ago, so I'm not saying it's 90 now, but I had a student do it who was overseen by the psychiatrist, and so she handled everything, and it was a fraction of the cost. So if you're, getting ready to get into college, or your child's getting into college and you have not done anything, that is a way to get cheaper. And that's probably something I need to do with my own son, because it is hereditary, and he is very much his mother's son, and he's doing fabulous. But if he has it, then there's accommodations. See,
with accommodations, I got the bare minimum that I needed to. I needed a 24 for the scholarships that I needed. And I was like, I'm done. Your test is stupid. Because I got my lowest grade was in science reasoning. I have a degree in civil engineering. Obviously, I have science reasoning.
Yes.
But the time, I didn't have enough time to
go through the test and read the test.
And go back the way I needed to. So I just decided your test is stupid and moved on. But a lot of
I actually never took the ACT. I guess I started college like 30 years ago, just about. And at that time, there were ways around it. I went to a community college with no testing and then transferred. So and even now you might be able to do something like that. So
had I had the dyslexia accommodation of extended time, I would have had a much higher score grade and possibly scholarships, academic scholarships,
which are important. Okay, so go away, fly.
Got off track. But all
that is not off track. That is a wonderful. That's the whole thing. We're here to answer questions for mamas. You can get on Homeschool House Calls. You can contact me. We can do it virtually. If you're close to me, we can meet up. I think it's a lot of fun, and I would do my best to help solve, whatever problem you've got going on. And anyway, that's the end for today. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Wasn't that a fabulous question? Aren't you excited to go shopping now? I'm like, my biggest problem in life is I'm a curriculum junkie. And every new homeschooler, a new mother, will become a curriculum junkie for a while, and that's okay. You don't have to keep everything that you buy on your shelf, but you are okay to keep what you think is a good value and a good resource for your family. It's different for every family. So I am glad you joined us today for our second episode. Next week we will be with Tasha and Michelle, two homeschool moms who work together. They are using a public school at home option, and we're going to talk with them, and I think we're going to have a great time. They're great moms. So come back next week. We'll see you. Have a great week.